And here's an example of some tenons. And if you look right here, this is called a spline. And that is one way to connect beams. The post is bigger and the two beams pocket in to the post. And what you got is like a 2x8 that mortises into both sides of the beam, pegs connecting. It's an old-time strap. Basically,
like a big knife plate in there.
You could do a knife plate.
Is that what it kind of is, like a knife
No,
plate?
this here is it's kind of a little bit dark there. It might even be 2.5 or 3 inches wide because everything's so big, and it hangs down, X amount, and is pegged to the post also, and it's got a little decorative cut to it. It's part of the
So it
art.
goes part way up into the beam then?
Yeah, it goes about 4 inches.
Okay.
And then it typically hangs down a couple inches.
What's the purpose of it hanging down?
Art.
Just art. Okay.
Yeah,
just
I
for
mean,
looks.
Just for looks. Yep. That's 98% of my
Right.
job. Yeah.
Regular things, yeah. Put it together with steel bolts and then put pegs on the outside.
No.
Well, sometimes we do that. I'm a pragmatist.
I'd be doing.
He does a lot of it with oak pegs.
Yeah, most of the oak pegs are the most economical. If I can do it with that, I'm better off. And not only that, then it's more of the, the true blue. Yeah. But I'm a pragmatist, and I feel like the timber framers of 300 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, if they could be transported to today, and if I was a guy who was hacking down my own trees and squaring them up and just totally with hand tools, they would chew me out. You have access to all this, and you're doing X?
Yeah. You got steel bolts, why aren't you using them?
Yeah, they would be aghast. And so I try to follow that mentality and still include the art when I'm doing this.
Question: as long as you're talking about that, didn't the Swedes have a reputation in the old styles construction to do this kind of?
Yeah, sometimes it's confused with logs.
Swedish cove.
Yeah, the Swedish cove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they kind of really had a special way of doing that.
With the logs.
With the logs. So lateral bracing systems, these words I've kind of coined for just, I don't know if they're going to be more confusing or not. A cantilever system, shear diaphragm, load to footprint, a knee bracing, which we kind of touched on already, a through tenon, and a crux system. And there's one more I'll bring up too as we get to the end. So the knee brace system, here you've got the knee brace with a tenon into the post, resisting both sides, as long as the post will take the load of whatever's, won't break. And it's kind of a funny deal. A lot of these old barns with this knee brace system, they'll have a knee brace that's way up on the post. And for me, that ratio, I like a good solid ratio. I mean, I don't want a whole bunch of flex. On these barns that have a knee brace, 16 foot up in the air, some of that strength is in the ability to move with the load and not fail. You get so much flex in that post that the triangle doesn't have to perform as well, because by the time that wind, kind of like a vine maple versus an oak tree, I tend to be more solid. I don't like the shaky part. It is impressive, like with pole buildings, a 6x6 post, how much flex. If you go up 14 foot, I mean, they flex like crazy, but that's part of the strength. Okay, shear diaphragm and a knee brace, and this is something I hit a lot. Most of the times, to make it easy for engineers and whatnot, we'll just say we're picking up the load in the diaphragm, in the roof that's coming out. And in this case, a steep roof like this, it gives you, like we talked about with the low thrust, it's strong that way. One other place that when it's real steep like that, it doesn't give you as much shear value. when you sheet that both of them roofs, you know, there's kind of a lot of, you start pushing and moving, it's not going to be as strong as a 312 or a flat deck. That's, you know, locked in. You get it steep like that, and here we're coming out, you know, 6 feet, and so it's for the engineer's purpose. The roof is going to keep it from falling over, and this with the short posts and whatnot, I feel like the post will catch load before the roof will. But either way, it's not coming down.
So, when you do these like this, I mean, this is some of your work I'm
Yeah.
assuming. How much of that do you actually do? Do you sheet the roof and do the connection to the house? Have you been involved in the framing of the house? I mean, I know you used to frame all that stuff. Do you do all that stuff there, or do you do just the timber frame part of it?
On this one here, we got it ready with the decking at the right level, so they could frame off that and sheet over their rafters and tie the whole works together with their plywood. So it was ready. All they had to do was
Sheet
run the
it up.
plywood out and, you know, nail it in, and they're good to
Right.
go. Okay, knee brace system we've already talked about. One thing that is unique about this picture, this setup right here is kind of the crown jewel of the timber frame industry. It's something,
Hammer truss?
hammer beam truss, hammer truss, yep. And it's a little bit ironic because there is stronger systems to use, but this one has the appeal. This one has a lot of appeal. In an engineering article I'd read, the very boiled down takeaway, the nutshell from the article, was that with these hammer beam trusses, get that knee brace as low as you possibly can. Because what happens is the load comes down through these knee braces and it creates that blowout up at the top. And that's holding the roof. It's kind of the same thing as we talked about with that scissor truss and that tension load. If that post would give out with, say you had a 40-foot span, you know, if there's enough tension there that it's going to try to blow that post out, and then she all comes down. And it's that tension factor again.
So is that why you lap the tops over and pinned it like that?
Well, this
At the
here,
ridge?
part of it is, this has no ridge, there's just a small truss on the other side behind there. And part of the decision to do that was, you know, this was so tight, it didn't make sense to have a ridge. And it's just a way of connecting it. And it is a good connection that then locks in both halves.
Was that building all timber frame or just,
Just the entry, yeah.
because it did have knee braces out under the
Oh, right here?
eaves?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And
just
these just-
decorative.
Yes,
Then more gingerbread help. They hold the barge up also. Okay, and here's what I call a load to footprint system. And in reality, the knee braces are doing all the work here. And this is with this is what they call post and beam construction. That just simply means it's connected with metal plates rather than mortise and tenon. And in this one here, you'll notice these straps go up real high and the bolts are offset. And I kind of wondered about that the whole time we were going through there. Exactly. And they just base their calculations off of a 6x8 footprint. How many bolts do they need? How far up do they have to go before there's enough resistance to not fall over? And the first time I was exposed to anything like this was an odd job I bid. It was down in California. You had to hike up to the mountains to get there. And it was like a Greco-Roman type of a campsite area for campers that were going along these trails. It might have been the Pacific Crest Trail. They had every 12-foot a grid. It was at 44 by 60. But every 12 foot, they had a log, a pole that was about 30-inch diameter, 24, and it was up 16 foot high with You know, Pearland's really tight space. They had a huge snow load. It was way up in the mountains. And I couldn't figure it out at first. I was like, well, what's holding this guy up? Well, what they had was metal, rebar, that was epoxied into the concrete and epoxied into the bottom of this log, just all the way around, about 8 inches on center. And that, every log combined, you know, wouldn't fall over, with the same principle that they did the test on the epoxy.
Wow.
And if it can't fall over, you know, if it can't break the bond there, it won't fall over.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
So here is
It's like Lou's,
a through tenon. We can see it here.
Lou's concrete.
That gave me, there's 3 staggered pegs. And this is basically, there's 2 beams to help pick up the load.
Yeah.
And then you see the knee braces there in the truss. They create that truss. You can't, them top and bottom members cannot move one on the other. And so as soon as that happens, the only thing you have to do to make this solid is get a good connection here and a good connection there. And the posts can't flex. And this here is quite the opposite of the old barns with the knee braces way up. This is a 10 by 12. 12's going the other way. And, you know, about 5 foot long. That guy's more of an oak tree than a
Yeah.
vine maple. And a crux system. Are any of you familiar with the crux system? It's an old term. It's kind of the origin of...
Dave might be.
It looks like a, why isn't that a hammer truss?
The reason it isn't, you can see the concrete here at the bottom. The reason it's not a hammer truss is the load simply comes down and there's a knife plate in the bottom.
Yeah.
So that thrust gets put to there's some big concrete columns and it goes to the concrete columns, and I avoid the tension that takes place here.
Okay.
And that's basically a crux system. Is what they used to do. They took trees, bent trees, and leaned them together. It's basically like an A-frame. You've seen the A-frame with the
Sure.
where they butt out in the concrete.
Yep.
Yep. Same principle. So that kind of covers the basic systems of, you know, you can, right from the get-go, you can see, okay, what's going to be holding this guy up from the different systems. Now, I don't have pictures on this one. This is the only slide I've got for this section here. I don't have pictures, but I will get pictures on the special page. So when we send the link, you'll be able to look at it. I'll get you pictures of spiral grain, pitch cracks and wind stress, and knots in the wrong places, which, I don't know, how much have you guys gone over that? Do they go through that quite extensively?
Nobody really does. You better have some savvy when it comes to that, I think.
Yeah.